All right. Well, welcome back, everyone, to the youth track. I hope you had a great networking break and maybe a little lunch as well. My name is Maddie. I'm the youth type track leader, in case you didn't know. And I'm very excited to introduce the second block of the day today on the youth stage, which is the Hire Me, I'm Young block, where most of our talks revolve around things happening in the workplace. And I'm very, very pleased to welcome to the stage Jillian Killingback. So Jillian, let me give you permission to, or excuse me, not Jillian, I called you Jillian. Jen Killingback, goodness me, I'm so sorry, I read the wrong name on that one. Who's the director of North America for Alexander Daniels Global. So Jen, why don't you turn on your camera and mic? Her talk today is called Talent Pathways into AM for Employers and Professionals. So please help me welcome her to the stage.
Thank you very much, Maddie. As you mentioned, I've been with Alexander Daniels now for 4 years. I've been an additive for 6. I've been both an HR manager and a recruiter. And I'm here to talk today about the pathways of getting into additive, some alternative ways of coming into this industry. We all know that recruitment in additive manufacturing is very challenging. There, quite honestly, isn't enough talent to fit all the positions that we have open now, let alone the projections that we're seeing from years to come. And so some of the things to think about, we job orders or we have recs at our companies, but they require practical experience. That's a big change or a big challenge for us. And so one of the things that I'm very passionate about is that additive manufacturing in some ways is going to be another skilled trade field. Think of like field service engineers, sometimes application engineers, possibly in service within the headquarters, taking down machines, inventory, supply chain, things of that nature. And so one of the things that I'm very passionate about as far as being a skilled trade is to tap into the youth market. Have had success with identifying exceptional talent at the local high school, that whether it's a mechatronics program through their vocational or career consortium, or maybe they're in CAD and they've had 2-3 years of CAD. Use those resources, talk to the teachers, ask them to recommend their graduating seniors for a summer role. Those same summer employment co-op students, if you will, they can do inventory. They can do machine breakdown for repairs, returned machines. They can learn health and safety. You can teach them parts finishing, depending on the parts. And then also you can utilize their CAD skills and possibly teach them magics, and they can do basic builds on some of the printers. I've seen this successfully done more on the polymer side, of course, but again, it's a great way to give a younger workforce the practical knowledge, number one, to see if this is where they want to spend their career. Maybe this encourages them to go further in their education. Maybe they come in as a vocational student from a technical school and they are hired as an FSE or a field service engineer. That field service engineer, through career progression, move into application engineering. I've seen them move into sales, operations. So there's definitely a path. The problem that we have is we really haven't tapped into that. We're still trying to recruit experienced talent back and forth. And as I mentioned before, there just isn't enough. We have to develop this new pool of talent for the next 3 to 5 years and so forth. One of the things that I think works really well, if you did want to explore a co-op or a vocational program, if you're an employer, is to contact your local university, your local high schools, and speak to the counselors, speak to the teachers that are running those programs and get recommendations. The 3 keys to hiring someone in a co-op situation are communication, flexibility, and trust. In one particular situation, there were several people hired that were out of high school, going for their mechanical engineering degree, were in the summer between their high school graduation and their start of university, worked full-time and learned about the machines, the materials, how to build parts, how to finish parts. Basically, were an extra set of hands throughout the facility where needed. And when they started school, they already knew so much when they walked into the additive lab. And if you think about it, while those students are still in school, maybe they work down to part-time hours. Maybe when it's time for finals or, the coveted spring break, they work less hours. They may work more hours on other breaks when they're not traveling or going home. And they're building not only a knowledge base, but they're building brand loyalty. They'll know those machines. They're sponges. They have that natural curiosity. They want to tear things apart and look at it. And these could be people that you hire as your next mechanical engineer, and they've already been working on your machines or with your materials or the process or whatever. And you have an employee that had essentially, a 2 to 4 year working interview. So that is a great opportunity to tap into that younger market. Another area that is often overlooked for the youth coming into the additive manufacturing candidate pool is OPT. OPT sponsorship is through the university for international students. And depending on their particular situation, many employers don't know about the OPT program. I have worked with it before, and I do have some familiarity and would be happy to answer anything about that offline. But basically, it's a way to tap into engineers, material scientists, software engineers, and give them the practical experience that they need, which is what OPT stands for. And also, you're gaining fresh eyes on a project. So that's another area where I think that we could focus a little bit more is on the OPT part of it. One thing that is very evident in the youth track is that when we are interviewing people as recruiters, we are often asked for people that have 3, 5, 10, 15 years of experience. We're not going to have many of those until we bring more of the youth into the applicant pool. So we really need the employers to be open to the concept. If you do not have an HR department, if you're a smaller organization, it's something that can also help you in other areas of the company, like customer service. It's not just limited to what we're doing immediately. It could help you with, parts finishing. Maybe it's project work. Instead of having a contract worker, if you will, you have a co-op student, or maybe you have a pair. Again, it's hourly employment. They're learning, they're growing. They're going to be a champion for your product, hopefully, and your materials or your process or your software. They bring fresh ideas. I think that another area that is challenging is that we do have people that come into our industry that are new from other industries. So although they might not exactly be on the youth track, if you will, they're still very new to our world of additive manufacturing, which we all know is quite unique and niche. And so keeping your options open as an employer, it is beneficial to sometimes, depending on the role, to look a little bit outside of just our industry. So maybe you take someone who is a year into their career in injection molding. They may make a very easy transition to your particular technology. And that's another way to have more people in the additive manufacturing candidate pool over the years. I'm very curious when we get to the Q&A section, if anyone has hired co-op students or vocational students, and if you've, what your success has been on that. I can only speak from personal experience. I myself was a vocational student when I was in high school. In fact, I worked 2 hours every day in my senior year for credit back many, many years ago. And it was great. It was a solid foundation for what I do today. And that's probably why I am so passionate about it. Not everyone is, destined to go for a bachelor's, master's, or even a PhD. Some are excellent in their trades. They're excellent with their hands. They think outside the box, and we need that talent in our industry as well. As far as health and safety, they will, depending on when they come into the program, if it's out of high school, college, or whatever, all of them are going to benefit from the health and safety training that you provide. It's something that's going to help them also in school if that's what they choose to do, because they're going to be in labs within their universities. It's definitely, if they're a mechanical engineer, they will be. They can also look at the different career pathways. I think a lot of people forget that our industry is still new. Doesn't seem like it, but it is. And there is a great career projection that can take place in additive manufacturing. Think about I'll give you a typical example, parts finisher, finishing, printed polymer parts, photopolymer parts, and they're sanding. And then they start to clean the machines. And then they learn CAD, and now they're doing building. And then after that, maybe they become really, really good at breaking down the machines. And so they go into field service. Perhaps from field service, they decide, I'm really good at training clients like me. I'm great at communicating the different applications of this software or this hardware material, whichever it might be. And they decide to go into application engineering. That is what somebody needs to have. You don't want just a job, you want a career. And that's what additive manufacturing provides. It provides more than just one career opportunity. The challenge is us giving people the practical experience to go with their, primary education, whether it be high school or their vocational education, or even their college education. Now, if you're a college student, and I do get a tremendous amount of contacts from university students that are graduating looking to work in additive manufacturing. If I have spoken to you and you are on this panel, you will remember that I told you that you need to get some practical experience. It is what's going to differentiate you from any other candidate when you're applying for jobs. Don't just rely on the internships the summer or season before you graduate. Try to work in additive in some form or another while you are in school. Attend conferences while you're in school. Make connections while you're in school. When you go to apply for a job with, let's say, an OEM, and you want to be on the design team for a new machine, if you've had some form of experience doing so, whether you designed, you worked for a company as a co-op or a vocational employee, or even while you were in school, you were just working part-time at a facility to break down machines, simple as that. That's something that you can put on your resume that's going to make you even more attractive to an employer that's looking for practical experience. There is a difference between deadlines at school and deadlines in a corporate role. There's also, the very basic need for someone to understand, this is the strategic map of what we need to get done. This is our technology map. We need to get this done. It's not like we have all semester to get it done. So what they're looking for is urgency, but also quality. working within a team of different people and different personalities and different backgrounds. You're going to feel that more in an employment setting than a school setting. So the advice that I give over and over is wherever you can be involved in additive while you are in school, if this is the career that you're choosing, try to get some practical experience. Maybe you volunteer. Maybe you work, part-time for just over minimum wage, whatever it is that you need to do to get that practical experience, and never ever say it's not my job. That is the best advice I can give anybody. Anytime I was offered training, I took it. Anytime I was offered a challenge, I tackled it. You can't shy away from things. You have to be politely aggressive in your own career path. You can't wait for everything to be handed, but you do have to take advantage when things are presented to you. You have to be challenged. If you have any questions about OPT, vocational, how to work with a co-op student, how to establish schedules, my personal experience with it, how it could work for you, or maybe even possibly help connect you to the right people in your area so that you can try that this year, I would be more than happy. And you can always find me on LinkedIn. As I said, it's Jennifer Killingback. I'm the only one in the world. It'll be really easy to find. Now, if anyone has any questions, I am more than happy to answer them.
All right. Well, Jen, thank you so much for that really informative talk. We have a lot of questions actually going on right now. And perhaps one of the highest rated questions is from an anonymous viewer, and they're asking if you can give your top hint for how to sell yourself as an additive manufacturing engineer.
The top hint. So additive manufacturing engineers, of course, depending on what track. So if you're going into metals versus polymers, composites, and so forth, things that I've been asked for are people that have exceptional background in qualification of parts, are able to communicate effectively between not only the management team or the research team, but also for clients. Basically break it down to layman terms, but be able to talk to all levels that you're involved in as an AM engineer. Be sure that you do not limit yourself by title. I think that's one thing I forgot to mention that I really want to say. Our industry is notorious for having multiple titles for the same role. So try not to get hung up on titles, especially if it's your first position outside of school and you're looking to get into additive. Don't worry about the title so much. Worry about the responsibilities and how they're going to challenge you and provide you a career track.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So one question that just popped up that I think is very interesting is how should people from low-income backgrounds balance this need to work for only just above minimum wage for a period of time to gain experience in the industry and living costs?
Okay. Speaking from someone from a low-income background when I was growing up, basically what I've seen on the entry level, when I say minimum wage, what I've seen for co-op students or vocational students or somebody who's new working part-time, it's been like $15 to $20 an hour. It's not like 9 or 10. So it's a decent amount of money for just learning something. And it's definitely more than you're making at the mall selling shoes. But I think what's important is if you are in school, if you are still at home in high school, or you're waiting to go off to university, or maybe you're just figuring it out, you have to start somewhere. Okay. So let's say you start off as a co-op and you're making $15 an hour, but you're getting a ton of practical experience and you're learning more and more about the servicing of the machines, and you decide you want to be a field service engineer. Once you can establish yourself as a field service engineer, that salary, that $15 an hour, jumps from $50,000 to $90,000 a year is what field service engineers make in our industry right now. And yes, I talk with my hands a lot, so forgive me. So it's the little steps to get to the bigger career is what it is.
Awesome, thank you. And I talk with my hands a lot too. You just can't see it because my camera's down more. So Andres Nahara, I think if I'm saying your name wrong, I apologize, but he has a question. And do you have any suggestions for courses or books or any other sources to learn more about additive manufacturing, even if you're not in school anymore, with a special interest, he says, in metal additive manufacturing?
Two places come to mind immediately. One is ASM, which is right outside of Cleveland. I would reach out to them. They had put together a training course, a certification course for metal additive. And then also, of course, MIT has a multitude of great resources. There's some books. I mean, if you want to just start to learn about additive manufacturing, there are some really good books out there. One was written by 3D Hubs. And if I had it out, I could tell you what it said. Actually, I do. I take that back. The Rise of Industrial 3D Printing and the 3D Printing Handbook.
Oh, the 3D Printing Handbook, that's a good one for starters, for sure.
That's an excellent one.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Awesome. So another question is, do you think it's possible to train for years as an intern / high schooler on polymer machines and transfer without full retraining onto one of the more industrial technologies such as metal AM?
Well, that's an interesting little question. The issue with, it's not even an issue. So polymer, plastics, FDM, composites, all of that has its place in the market. It's not to be outshadowed, if you will, just by metal. Mm-hmm. But you are correct in the question of how do you make the jump from having a polymer background to a metal background. Now, if you're an engineer and you're looking to do metal printing, your question is going to be a little bit different. If you're someone on the skilled trade side, it doesn't matter if you want to be an FSE or quite even possibly a junior application engineer, which side of it you're on. The machines are capital equipment and you are servicing capital equipment. And then once you are fully efficient on what you do, you might have taken courses that help you move into a metal type printer. Also, depending on your employer, we have now OEMs that are doing metals and polymers through acquisitions. So you might be able to transfer in between those two areas of the company. The other part too is if you're on the engineering side or you're already graduated, to get into the metal industry, you have to have some form of metal background, whether it's through school, whether it's outside certifications, like I said, through ASM or MIT. You have to have something else because there is a higher level of expertise requested. You have metals that'll explode. You don't usually see that with polymers. So it's a whole different health and safety.
Mm-hmm. For sure. And so we have another question. And how would you suggest getting experience in a specific AM field, for example, the medical field, without jumping headfirst into more schooling and then discovering that maybe this career isn't for you?
Okay. So, for example, we'll use the medical field or even the dental field because they are very specialized versus general industry or aerospace. My recommendation would be if you were going to do some research, I would look at your local service bureaus. I would look at your local distributorships for the different machines and that have an interest in those areas, whether it's medical or it's dental. Mm-hmm. That would be the place I would start. And then I would approach them about a co-op position or some form of part-time position, even if it's 2 days a week, so that you can get your hands involved. That's where I would start. The other part is understand when you go into a niche area of additive like that, it's sometimes, depending on the role you're in, it can be very challenging to get out of that niche. So just keep that in mind. So if you want medical, you're going to have to love medical, because it might be challenging to jump into aerospace because that's not what your expertise is. So just something to think about.
Awesome, thank you. Another question. What resources are available for students from underprivileged backgrounds moving into the competitive field of engineering without resources to, say, move across the country and pursue their career?
Okay. So depending on where you live in the U.S., and I'm only speaking on the U.S. because I'm not that familiar with Europe and Asia, but where you live in the U.S., it is very true that additive manufacturing kind of hits the West Coast, the East Coast, the South, and then the Midwest, and then there's kind of just spotty coverage in the center of the country. So depending on where you're at, you may not have the luxury of a distributorship right down the street that you can go and do a tour or a working interview or some type of co-op, because that would be my first suggestion, is try to stay local first, see if this is what you like to do. Take a job as a parts finisher, take a job as a builder if you have CAD. Start there. If you want, as far as resources on how to move, some companies, depending on what you're bringing to the table. So for instance, if you are a mechanical engineer or a software engineer and you wrote your entire program, or you developed a machine that you sold while you were in school, you may be very high on their list. They may relocate you for a role. It doesn't usually happen on entry-level roles, but if it's something exceptional, they just might do that. Mm-hmm. And if you want to write me privately on LinkedIn, I'll try to help you find some other resources, because I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that, Jen. We do appreciate it. We have time for a couple more questions. One of them is, how can teachers and professors help direct talent into the AM industry?
This is a very interesting question. So, both my son's CAD teacher and his mechatronics teacher had no idea what the term additive manufacturing meant. They had no idea there was Rapid or FormNext or anything. So I've been educating my school system. I think that's one of the big issues we have right now, is it's outside of our circle. It's not really that well known. They just think of it as CAD, or, oh, we played on the 3D printer and, printed an Eiffel Tower or whatever. So I think one thing we need to do is first educate our educators and let them know that this is a career path. When I had this similar conversation with the teacher at my son's school about field service engineers, and, once they get into it and they, are really good at what they do and they train the customers and all that, and I said they're making 50 to 90K a year, he was blown away. He didn't believe me. I had to bring in our salary survey to show him. So what I would do is number one, you need to educate your educator and let them know that this is a field that you want to be involved in. If you are an educator, I recommend that you follow the publications online, Women in 3D Printing, attend Rapid, go to the IMTS when it comes to town. You have to become involved. The other thing that teachers should do is reach out to people like me and reach out to HR people at OEMs and start building a pipeline where they can have conversations when they do have exceptional students to refer.
For sure. And shameless plug on that for the trade shows that you mentioned as well. IMTS is actually free for students to attend. So wherever it goes, you're free and welcome as a student. And AMUG also has a student scholarship. So as a student, you can apply for that scholarship and get an entirely full free ride to AMUG, which was really the starting point of my career as well. I attended AMUG as a college student. I didn't get the scholarship I attended, and really is what shot me forward. So also, again, if you are from an underprivileged background, you want to go to some of these conferences, check out the scholarships that are available for students. Okay. And Jen, real quick last question. What traits should someone look for in young people who are looking to start in additive manufacturing?
Communication. It's going to be key that this person is an effective communicator, because they're going to have to tell you when they need a day off because they have school or they have a function. You need someone that you feel you can trust. When they're talking to you, they're looking at you in the eye and they're holding a conversation adult to adult. And then going back to flexibility. When you're talking to them and you're interviewing them, are you getting the impression that they will work with you just as much as they want you to work with them? Those are the 3 traits I'd look for.
All right. Well, that just brings us to time, Jen. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences and your expertise as a recruiter. I really do appreciate it. And I'm sure a lot of the students and young people that are on this track here also appreciate it as well.